that. She didn't. No. Okay, thanks. So, I've just hit record and it is 8:03 p.m. Today is a special committee of the whole meeting for Monday, February 24th. We have um oops, we have some members of the public that are joining us, and I am recording this session so that we can make it available for BevCam to put on our government channel. Our agenda really only has one item, which is Alicia Mallon is our new field director from MASC. She is also our facilitator and search coordinator for our superintendent search. The agenda did have a call to order, which I'll do in just a moment, and I'll read the preamble about remote meetings, and a pledge of allegiance, but I do not have a flag. So we might need to skip that item. And we had put executive session, but I did that preemptively in case we needed it, and I will affirm that we do not need agenda item 3. So stepping back, I want to thank everyone for the extra time this week dedicated to school committee, because I know this is a special meeting and that people had to juggle some schedules, but we felt it important to have a dedicated session to look at the stakeholder surveys and talk a bit about our advertising plan so that we can get that squared away and set out as quickly as possible. So again, this is a committee of the whole. Today is Monday, February 24th. The time is 8:04 p.m. and I am recording this session. I want to let everyone know that with this remote meeting model, we are using a remote meeting application that provides public access to the open portions of our meeting in a real-time basis, and that it will be provided in a recorded fashion to BevCam for the archives. And this is all because of the Acts of 2021, which began June 16th, 2021, Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, which have been twice extended and now further extended till March 31st, 2025, to allow local governments the provision to, among other things, hold meetings in a remote fashion by suspending the need for a quorum and chair to physically be present. It asks our body to use technical methods to make sure there is safe public access. I also always like to note that Beverly has prior approval through the Attorney General's office for remote participation, although if and when this act expires at the end of next month, the chair and quorum do physically need to be present for our open meetings. Again, tonight is a committee of the whole. There is no opportunity for the public to address the body. The next opportunity will be at our regular school committee meeting in March. To sign up to speak or to receive a link to remotely participate, you would send an email to residentvoice@beverlyschools.org, where our executive secretary maintains that role and listing. The sign up is an opportunity to speak for up to 3 minutes, or to ask the chair to read something on your behalf into the record. So today we are joined by members of the school committee. I'll do a roll call to make sure that we can all see and hear each other. I see Mayor Cahill.
Here.
I see Karen Robinson.
Here.
I see Jeffrey Silva.
Here.
I see Lorinda Visnick.
Here.
And I'm Rachel Abel. I could hear each of you. I am joined twice just so I will be able to share the draft brochure at a later point in the meeting without fumbling. We are also joined this evening by Assistant Superintendent Dorothy Flaherty. Thank you for joining us, Dot.
Here, I'm just here in case you need anything from us.
I understand, yes, with the brochure and everything that we'll be reviewing. I appreciate the district's help with that. And then I also see our BTA President, Andrea Sherman, and our BMS librarian, Alex Wozniak, have joined us. Welcome. Okay, with that, I want to welcome Alicia, and I really want to turn it over to you at this point. You are a paid expert on the superintendent search, and you have been in the background compiling survey results and trying to synthesize for us what it is our community is asking for in our superintendent search. So take it away.
Thank you. So thank you for having me this evening. My name is Alicia Mallon, and I am the field director for the Northeast. I'm also your search coordinator for this search. We may have some other search coordinators, field directors join us as we go along. Sometimes we have conflicting meetings, but for the most part, I will be your, excuse me, I will be your point person. I've been with MASC for over 2 years now. And one of the great things about working at MASC is everyone who works there either has been or currently is a school committee member. So I currently sit on the Neshoba Tech School Committee, and I'm starting my third year there. And before that, I was on my town's committee in Westford for 5 years. So everyone in the office has been or is a school committee member. So we have sat where you sat. We understand a lot of the work that you do.
I
So
just want to
today
pause for one moment to recognize our school committee Ward 2 representative, Ken Ann McKenzie, has joined us. I just want to confirm, Dr. McKenzie DeFranza, that you can hear and see us.
I am here. Sorry
Okay,
for
we can hear you. That's all right.
the late joining.
Thank you. I'm
No
sorry,
problem.
Alicia. Okay.
Hi. So I want to emphasize before we start working through our slides now that this is just the beginning of the community participation in this process. When we run a search, we start with a stakeholder feedback survey that gives us an idea of what questions we're going to have the screening committee develop in order to narrow down the field of applicants to the finalists that will come to the public. And yes, the screening committee represents Beverly and all its hopefully constituent parts, but there will be other opportunities as we go along for the public to have input. Once the finalists are chosen, they will have a day in the district where they meet with multiple stakeholder groups, from staff to parents and caregivers to students. Essentially, you tell us which stakeholder groups you want them to meet with, and we we work out that schedule with them. There will also be an opportunity for feedback after their interviews with the school committee, so that once the school committee has had the interview, but before they make the decision, there can be feedback then too. So think of this as really just the preliminary. It's kind of an oil stick dip to see where we need to start before we continue this process. So I'm going to share my screen. And let me click on slideshow from the beginning. So this is our, we are covering tonight the initial stakeholder survey results, and then I'd like to walk you all through kind of the next steps, what happens in the search itself. So this was very much a preliminary survey of the stakeholders. And again, it was about framing the interviews that will be conducted. The responses were collected from a combination of guardians, parents and guardians, students, staff, community members. And again, like I said, there will be multiple opportunities for feedback as we move through this process. So, sorry about that. Go back. There we go. So our first question was, we asked people to choose what best describes their relationship to the Beverly Public Schools. And you can see there were many overlapping categories, but you can see that we have a lot of parent representation here. There was a lot of representation from staff that overlapped with parent representation as well. And then there were definitely some community members who came out strong to express their thoughts. And you can see how that breaks down there. We had about 414 responses overall. And then we had some open-ended questions. So this open-ended question was, we asked people to list 3 strengths of the Beverly Public Schools that they'd like to see continue under the next superintendent. And what's really important to see here is that there are 3 words that stand out. Students was the word that was mentioned overall by the most respondents, followed by teachers and schools. Your respondents here talked about how the community is strong, how the curriculum is strong, how the staff and the students and their relationship is good, and how they want that to continue. Very student focused, very student driven. So that will be one of the things that when we're developing the questions with the screening committee, we really want to make sure that your potential candidates have a good student focus. By the way, stop me if anyone has any questions. I don't mind being interrupted. Just stop me and we'll go with your question. So the next thing that, unsurprisingly, the next question about the challenges the next superintendent will face also said students, teachers, but we're also seeing staff and needs. There was a lot of discussion in these answers, and then we're going to see that reflected. We're going to see this reflected later on too, about communication, about relationship building and communicating with the public, building trust with the community, maintaining trust with the community. A lot of responses in this category talked about making sure that they were focused on the students and the benefit to the students in all decision making. So we did also ask what kind of experience is the most important for the next superintendent to have. Number one was classroom teaching, classroom facing experience. A lot of the respondents said that it was very important to them that the next superintendent be not just a lifelong learner and educator, but someone who has actually had classroom experience. We also see that financial and management experience came in a tied second place. This is most of the responses, the open-ended responses did talk about budget concerns. Nobody is alone in budget concerns right now. We are all in a very precarious position. But they did say that they wanted someone who was very experienced financially, had good management skills, a lot of good communication skills, so that they could work with the district around communicating those financial needs and managing the process. So, and this is just in the slides that I sent you, this is just the percentage breakdown, so you can take a look at it later if you want to dig in a little deeper. And then we also asked what the most important leadership qualities were. And you can see again that communication skills comes up as number one, and advocacy for students comes up as number two. This is a repeating theme that we were seeing in all of your responses. Your stakeholders want someone who communicates well, who is student focused, who is receptive to feedback and approachable and available, and who advocates for students and staff. So that was, we were not seeing disparate answers to these questions. We actually saw the same things over and over again, which is great. It tells us that the stakeholders are all mostly pointed in the same direction. And again, there's the percentage breakdown for you if you want to take a look at that later. And then we asked one last open question, which was, is there anything else you'd like to share with the school committee? Not everyone responded to this. Approximately 169 people skipped it. Most of what we heard here was, again, students and teachers and needs and community and schools. And most of what these respondents wanted to tell us was, you've been through a lot in the last couple of years, and they're looking for a superintendent who can come in and build relationships and build community and build on open feedback and really working with the stakeholder groups and being collaborative. That is what your stakeholders want to see in the next superintendent. So those were our basic 5 questions. And you can see it was a very basic survey. We were just looking for the beginning focus. What happens when the screening committee gets together, and we'll get there in a second, but what happens when the screening committee gets together is, when we develop the questions for the screening committee to ask the semifinalists that they bring in, we start with, we have a whole list of questions that we've developed over the years that are best practice questions that cover a range of issues. And then we take your initial stakeholder feedback and we make sure that we're asking questions from those categories as well. So we'll ask questions about student facing experience. We'll ask questions about communication. We'll ask questions about management and finance. And then the screening committee itself will help us shape those questions. The screening committee and myself will put together those initial screening questions based on our model questions, your stakeholder feedback, and then the screening committee's feedback as well. So the next steps are, I know that Rachel has the brochure draft that my office sent over. So we'll take a look at the brochure and we're going to finalize it, and the opening will be posted by the end of the week. Next week, the orientation of the screening committee will happen. And what happens in that meeting is, I will review the instructions on confidentiality and executive session. Screening committees meet in executive session to review the overall pool of candidates and then to choose the finalists. That is, by Massachusetts law, allowed to be an executive session. The rest of it has to be an open session, but the screening committee has to be an executive session by law. And part of the reason for that is we're talking about people who may or may not have let their district know that they were applying places. We're talking about people's personal information. So that initial screening happens in executive session. Once the finalists are chosen out of that pool, those finalists will be contacted by MASC, and then they will give us the green light. Yes, I do still want to be a finalist. I'm ready for everything to be public. And then the process flips to public and everything is public after that. So the screening committee will also review, again, the stakeholder feedback. We'll talk about question development. We'll talk about what the process looks like. Usually what happens is, depending on the pool of people you have, we bring some number of them in and we interview them as the screening committee. And then we reduce it down to between 2 and 4. 3 is kind of a sweet spot. The screening committee can't send you one person because then they've made the decision for the school committee and the school committee has final say. They need to send you at least 2. We like to recommend somewhere around 3, only because sometimes there are multiple searches going on and someone will step away for something else. So, and then the applications will close on the 15th. And during the 3rd and 4th weeks of March, I will be working with the screening committee and we will be choosing the semifinalists and beginning those interviews. And then by the last week of March, they will have chosen the finalists. I will go to the finalists and ask them if they're ready for prime time. And then those names will be announced and they will go to you and we will start the next part of the process. So once the finalists are selected, again, the names become public. What we do is we schedule full day visits. Generally what happens is, say 10 o'clock in the morning, a finalist arrives in your district. They would meet with your current superintendent, maybe the leadership team. They would have meetings with teachers at times that teachers are available. So we would schedule those with you so that we can make sure that those stakeholders are available. We don't want a teacher meeting in the middle of the day when they're all teaching. We want that to be when they can give their feedback. And then parent and caregiver meetings are usually in the evenings right before the school committee has their final interview. Once the school committee has had all of their final interviews in the evening, and again, all of this is public, then the school committee decides how they want to make their decision, whether they want to make it on the last night of their last finalist or if they want to wait a few days. The schedule of that will be worked out and all of those meetings will be posted as well. So at that point, that's the end of my slides for tonight. But I'm open. Do you have any questions about the process? Do you have any questions about what the screening committee looks like?
I
Go
have
ahead.
a question, if that's okay.
I think,
Sure.
Jeffrey, you may have put something in the chat, but could you put it for the recorded version, please?
Yes, I will. So I was just, you had mentioned with regard to the screening committee, they are asked to provide at least 2, up to 4. I'm wondering if we as a school committee can ask for at least 3 and up to 4.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. If that's the will of the school committee, yes. I try, when I am doing these searches, I do try and steer them towards at least 3, just because there's always the chance that someone drops and you don't want to have a situation where you would have to restart or reopen. We try not to do that. So,
Yeah. Okay.
yep.
Thank you.
At least 3, up to 4. Okay. Absolutely.
I'm looking for hands for committee members. Were there other, Miss Robinson, I see your hand. You need to come off mute.
Thank you, Madam President. I was just wondering if, Alicia, if you think it would be beneficial to have more teachers on the superintendent screening committee.
So as MASC, we don't generally get involved in the composition of the screening committee. We can tell you that having a cross section of your district is appropriate, but we're not usually making any recommendations about the screening committees themselves. There are districts that we come to them and they already have their screening committees in place. I do want to say that you don't want a committee that is too unwieldy. You know, once you get beyond a certain number of people, it's almost impossible to get them to make decisions and develop questions and things like that. I do want to assure you, though, that I'm not kidding when I say by the end of this, you're going to be sick of me, because there will be so much more stakeholder feedback that we're going to be looking to gather. Again, we like to recommend a good cross section, but it's up to the district to decide what that screening committee looks like.
And can I just ask how was that screening committee chosen?
So that's not a question for me.
Yeah, so I was kind of raising my hand. So the screening committee is basically the people who applied between the January 31st and February 11th dates were sliced and diced. Donna collected all of the applicants, and we had the opportunity to look at them in terms of how they identified themselves. And, so there were check boxes for whether they had elementary students, middle school, high school, whether they were staff, district, if they were caregivers for LPAC, CPAC, whether they had availability. I think you all had the survey and had the opportunity to take a look at that before it was posted, but there were a lot of different categories that the applicants could check off, and then availability was a big piece of it. And so per our policy, I think it's BDB. This is a special committee that the chair gets to appoint. However, I had to reach out to a number of people to make sure that the availability with the timeline that we sort of changed to be in that March, that third and fourth week of March was going to work. And so I reached out to a number of educators that it turned out had classes online that met at 6 o'clock or different things along those lines. But so the short answer is the chair appoints special committees, but a really thorough and rigorous review of each of the categories. I was going to just add that a couple people questioned about classroom teachers, and I did offer to a couple members that we would be open to adding a high school representative. We do have educators on our parent and caregiver group that are educators K-12, but we don't have district educators. We tried to get a guidance counselor from the high school, but again, there was a lot of conflicts because of how the timeline shifted into that third and fourth week of March, having to have availability for 3 to 4 days from 4 to 8 o'clock really presented a challenge for a lot of our busy people in the community. But I would say out of, 65 applicants, I think we have covered many of the bases in terms of parents, teachers, educators, coaches, different schools, different elementary schools are covered. So that's sort of how it's come about at this time. I'm still receiving some emails from people that had been appointed that are questioning their availability. And so each position has an alternate. And I did let people know that I could be contacting them if somebody has to bow out. So at this point, we have 18 people that we're going to have to fit into the conference room. And so that is a little bit above where we had targeted. I hope that covered all the bases there. I don't know if there was another question, Ms. Robinson.
No, I just wanted to express that I think you have there's a lot of people in the public who are concerned about the makeup of this committee, and I think they deserve to have their questions answered. That's all.
Ms. Visnett, I see your hand.
Thank you. Didn't we have at least one meeting where we talked about what we thought the composition of the search screening, whatever you want to call it, what it would be? I think we talked about that. So, and I don't think that how it's composed is much, if any, different than what we talked about in a previous meeting, nor do I think it's much, if any, different than the composition of the last two superintendent searches, of which I was a part of. So maybe if we could, I don't want to really put you on the spot, but maybe Wednesday night, bring that forward for a comparison, right? It's
So we do have this
sometimes
as an agenda item on Wednesday, so we can talk about it a little bit more when we'll make
Okay,
the formal
perfect.
announcements. I'm still getting emails from people questioning their ability to actually serve, so we'll get there by
Okay, thanks.
Wednesday, I hope. Thank you, Ms. Visnick. I'm sorry, was there another question, but more of a request for more information on Wednesday, right?
Yeah, just that I think that it's kind of like people right now complaining that we have really large class sizes, but in fact our class sizes are really small compared to what we used to have. But people who are in the district now don't remember or didn't have children, 10 years ago in the school district. So, what it's like, what is it relative to? And so if we can bring forward what it's relative to, the last two superintendent searches that we did, then that might help answer the kinds of questions you're getting, or that Miss Robinson says are coming from the community. All right. It's not like we're doing anything radical or radically different than the last two superintendent searches, which I understand nobody here was a part of either of those or of both of them.
Not of both. You and the mayor, I think, were just coming on board,
Right,
right?
right.
Yeah, before Hershey. Okay. Okay. Um, Thank you. So the brochure was the other item that we wanted to start thinking about in case there's changes or directions that we want to give to MASC. I can share my screen. That's why I have two screens going. Share. I actually have three screens going, so pardon my glare. I'm looking all over the room. I started to annotate this with some comments that Donna Bergeron had provided, just little nitty things. But generally, I was hoping that the school committee might have had an opportunity to look at it today, to see if we think this is the right direction. I know we all looked at this content, but it was just in a Google Doc at our last meeting. This is now with some graphics and layout. Um, I can say that, it was heard that we wanted to have the vision of the graduate, maybe more so than our quote unquote mission statement from our policy document. It doesn't quite read as nicely as this. And I see that that's been highlighted in the uppermost corner. The facts and figures have all been validated by Emma Puglisi. This is our October 1 number for pre-K to 12. This is our budget for FY25. And then for our staffing pattern, this was run against our most recent staffing pattern, to make sure that we were categorizing folks. School buildings, I had put a parenthetical in the draft. Nobody commented on it. I would highlight this right now. We do have the largest middle school. I don't know if we want to highlight that or not highlight that, but it was just something of note that I had put into our file. Looking for hands or for anyone to come off mute.
Yeah, Madam President, we could alternatively put next to elementary and middle, our grade configurations. As an alternative to that.
Okay.
So K through 4, 5 through 8.
Okay. I just have to remember how to use this app. I'm going to put it over here. So, add text, draw a box. There we go. K to 4, 5 to 8. Okay. Thank you. And I'll put those in the appropriate spots before I send this back to MASC. Thank you. Donna noticed that we accidentally gave you access to the high school logo, and we will get you the district logo.
Okay.
So we'll definitely change that. Okay, something that we discussed last time, 6 years ago when we did the superintendent search, was about the qualifications. And in fact, I had provided what we had established last time, that we're not necessarily requiring a doctorate, although it would be preferred that there's experience in administration, educated, or a related field, and that it's simply the master's degree. I didn't know if any members wanted to rethink that or change the wording on that. But that again was a point of discussion 6 years ago, where we wouldn't hold it against the right candidate if they didn't have their doctorate in education. I'm seeing
I
no
would say
hands.
Rachel, you may also even see candidates who are in the process of getting their doctorate. We do see that a lot with superintendents, that they're, 1 or 2 checks on the list away from their doctorate.
Okay. Looking for hands or questions on the qualifications. In our last meeting, we talked about some of these other points of information. The salary is competitive to benefit packages for this leadership position, commensurate with experience and qualifications. I did look back 6 years ago, and I think we had added some sort of like regional flavor to it, but I'm not sure if that's the will of the committee this time because you have reviewed this version. Oops, sorry. And then we have said historically the district has entered into contracts of 3 to 5 years. Again, 5 years is the maximum amount that we are allowed to contract. 3 is a more typical. And I believe that's how we had agreed to advertise. And then one question I have, we have a really good benefits package that is actually really well done on this Google site that we have on our district webpage. I guess I can't make it a link, but I can ask if we can somehow make it an easy to access item for candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll go to the next page. We spotted a typo that's a comma instead of a period. Dr. Silva, my apologies. We'll fix that.
That's fine.
I think we spelled everyone's names correctly. I pulled them off the city website, so I hope. Dr. Silva, you have your hand up. I'm sorry, I just noticed.
Yeah, I may have missed this, but I don't get to check if I'm on mute. No. Is there an opportunity to highlight the Essex Tech and Salem, like the relationships that we have with them as a way, or is it already highlighted in here?
It's not. That's actually a good piece of information. I thought we had something after dark, but it didn't make it into here. So
And even the pathways, you know, focus, including in there the section, some discussion about our commitment or our commitment to the pathways programs as well, perhaps.
Where would we put that? Would that be 1, 2, 3, the fourth paragraph? That seem
yeah, that seems like a
sort of highlighting population.
Yeah.
Let
me see if I can. It's so nerve-wracking to do this on a Zoom. Sorry, I will move it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to text it.
I think we had some
meetings.
text on that, and yeah, it just didn't get in here. And then I highlighted this sentence structure is crazy, and I think Karen, I saw a comment. We don't hyphenate north of Boston, right? And Dot, did you have a point of information? Yeah.
I did on your list on the staffing list.
Yep.
It's missing the director of equity, opportunity, access, and equity.
Oh, I thought we had added that. Okay, so that would be
probably under special education. Yeah, right there.
Is it access or is it opportunity first?
Opportunity is first.
Okay. In our minutes, we keep going back and forth. Okay. So I'll highlight that in red. And then on the next page, we were putting this thought together. Okay. Donna had questioned if these were supposed to be bold, and I don't know if we're doing that for emphasis that the appointment date is in April, or it was just this was accidentally bold.
So the last one should definitely be bold. I don't know that maybe the superintendent appointment is bolded so that it, provides that stop point. But if you don't want it bolded, we can definitely, yeah.
And then I see Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza, you've raised your hand.
Yeah, this is just totally my opinion. But I feel like in the section on demographics, we did give some important data points, but I feel like it would be a nice counter to also share some highlights, whether that's, a third of our students are athletes, or we have a robust theater program. I don't know. I'm just thinking about, kind of humanizing the data with some highlights of things that we really love about our schools, while providing data to help them understand, where and why we have different kinds of supports.
Okay. So, I can work with Andre and the athletic department, the music department to try to get
Maybe
some.
just a couple things, just to offset it by saying these are some really great things too, whether that's we have a high percentage of our students who take advanced placement courses, So I think anything that highlights that we have a good balance of, rigor and co-curricular, that, things that we value, I think is a nice way of rounding it out.
Mark can probably give you a percentage off the top of his head of that percentage of students that are involved in extracurricular activities at the school, at the high school.
Okay, great. Ooh, point, not paint. There we go. Okay, that's a great suggestion. And we have a little space there too, so that's.
I've got a thought.
Mhm.
I don't see, sorry that I'm squinting. I don't see mention of our business sector. I think it might be worth saying that we have a thriving healthcare, life science, clean tech, manufacturing, local economy.
Yep.
Something along those lines. Do you want me to say it again?
I think some of that was in the draft. I think that they didn't pick everything that we provided, but I think that's a good one. So we want to put more about that thriving health tech.
Yeah,
Care.
High tech, clean manufacturing. What else did I say? Healthcare, high tech, manufacturing. Maybe those three.
The Cummings Center has all kinds of professional services.
As does Cherry Hill, as do
Yeah.
some of the other downtown addresses. I guess the point is that there's a lot of fertile ground for collaborations, internships, et cetera, right? Give the right candidate that to look at, and they may hear some great things.
Okay. We'll work on that. Is there someone on your committee that I should interface with outside of this open meeting, to just like Jocelyn or somebody like that? I can. Yeah. Okay. Lorinda.
Rachel, sorry about that, Madam President. I would say if you want to check with anybody, it would be Planning Director Darlene and Economic Development Planner Erin Schaefer. Happy to.
I don't know how to spell Darlene. And is it Erin Schaefer? Okay.
Erin, Erin.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I can just ask them to put a really tight paragraph together and send it your way.
Okay.
Is that helpful?
That would be super helpful. That way we can have something more formal to look at Wednesday night and get this ad out there. Okay. I saw another hand. I'm sorry, Miss Visnick, was it you?
Yes, please. Depending on how we decide to word the offerings, as Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza kind of talked about, we have all these APs, we have all these kids involved in this, that, and the other thing. I think it's worth noting the AP classes that we added very recently that allow a wider participation, right? Because we had seen that there was a very serious opportunity gap based on our demographics. And so now the fact that we have like AP psychology is one example. You don't have to have any prerequisites and you can take it starting in ninth grade. And that has really changed our numbers around who and out of which quote unquote demographic are taking AP classes. So I think that that's important. And that I don't know how to capture that. I certainly don't know how to capture that concisely. But if we're going to look at putting in some text like that, I think that's worth thinking about how we can call that out because I do think that that is a differentiator for us.
Okay. Okay. And I saw, Karen, you had just pointed out that Manchester didn't have a direction. I think it's east. Well, it's kind of northeast because you gotta go kind of
Well,
through.
what I was actually going to say was if like we are putting in some really important information,
Mhm.
I think that whole paragraph could be eliminated with just the map there.
Okay.
Um, just because it's getting cluttery. I mean, I know it's just and I think the information that you guys are bringing up is a lot more important than,
Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, everybody has ways they can figure that out.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So instead of like all of that, just say we're 18 miles north of Boston. I always find it funny that they compare us to New York, but I think we had decided that we're doing, a worldwide search or at least a nationwide search. So
Yeah.
maybe people don't know where Beverly or Boston are. I'm sure they know where Boston is, right? Okay, so I will try to mark this as strike through text. There we go. Biotech, I see from Jeffrey. I will add that. So we have high tech and biotech. Um, Opportunities for internships, partnerships. Any other hands? I'm looking for committee members. I had listed the private and public colleges, Karen, and I also listed all of the schools we had. That list is so long. I didn't realize we have like a dozen recognized, if you include some of the kindergartens and things like that. So I don't know what that is. Sorry. Um, we do have that in the initial draft, but again, it's getting a little cluttered. I don't know that we want to list all of that. I also had listed some of our partnerships with the greater chamber, with the YMCA, but that isn't here. It was in our draft that we looked at last week. I don't know if we felt it important to put more of that information. I'm not seeing a strong reaction either way. One thing that I was noticing is that the application process kind of got orphaned on this third page. And at first, I was wondering if we could squeeze it up onto this page, but now that we're going to be adding some more to this section, I think it probably will be a third page. One of the MASC questions was about paper stock and things like that. Do we really imagine that in this day and age, we're going to be doing mailers? Can you talk a little bit about how this brochure will be used beyond the website and our superintendent search site?
So we almost never print these anymore. The time it takes to print them and send them out, et cetera, especially with your very tight timeline. I can tell you that when we send the advertisements out, the way we advertise your position is first it goes up on our site, and then we post the link to the actual application itself. Then we also have a distribution list of over almost 1,000 sitting superintendents and assistant superintendents. We also have access to all the state board and associations and the state superintendents associations. So beyond MASC and then MASS, which is the superintendent's organization, those organizations exist in every state, and we have partners in all of those states. So we send it out to all of them as well. There's also a group called the National Affiliation of Superintendent Searchers. We send it out there. Very often we send it to placement offices and colleges and universities. And then again, it goes on our website and MASS's website.
Great. Okay. I see your hand, Karen.
Um, is it possible to maybe do this on like Canva or something, just to make it look a little bit more, um, I don't know. I feel like it could be like a big, like on Canva maybe instead, because it might look better.
So we have in our office we have Carrie McCormick, who is our graphic designer, and then Jen Handy, who is our pretty much everything person in our office. And they work on the brochures. I did ask, there were pictures that were attached, I believe it was the middle school and the high school. Given that we've already gone on to the third page, whether or not you wanted to attach that as well. But I can definitely give them some feedback to make it um, a little bit more eye-catching.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think we have beautiful buildings, so I would agree with Karen on that. Especially because they're relatively new buildings too. I think they're a good feature.
Okay.
Yeah, our middle school is still pretty shiny. Okay. Yeah, so you do have those files, which I believe are in the highest resolution we have available. They are used on our website as well, but we gave you source for that. And then I will turn this file back around to you with some fleshed out text in these areas.
Okay.
Do we have any other thoughts or questions on this topic for our special meeting? So this is introductions, updates, advertising plan. If not, we're meeting again on Wednesday at 7:30. Just as a reminder to everyone, the finance and facility will be moving to Thursday night, still at the middle school in person. And that will give people that want the opportunity to go to Food Fight at the Cabot to be able to be there. And so we will see each other again at 7:30 in person at the middle school for our committee of the whole. The agenda and packet were sent out earlier today. We will have some minutes that will be coming. They're almost finished. It just takes a little while sometimes when we get them done to get them proofread. Let's see. I think that's it. If there's no other questions or comments on this draft brochure, I will call a motion to adjourn.
Madam President,
Yeah.
just want to thank you for the work so far. This is a lot of work. Appreciate it. And thank Alicia and say it's really nice to have you working with us.
Thank you. I look forward to working with you all, and I look forward to coming out and actually being in the district with you.
Definitely.
That's my favorite part.
Great.
Thank you, Rachel.
Sure. So is there that motion?
Yeah, thank you
Motion.
so much.
I heard Lorinda make the motion and
I want to debate it.
no, it's not debatable.
Motions to adjourn are non-debatable.
Yep. Who is my second?
Second.
Thank you, Jeffrey. It's not debatable. I'm going to call the roll. Mayor Cahill.
Yes.
Kim Coelho is absent. Ken Ann McKenzie DeFranza
Yes.
and Karen Robinson.
Yes.
Jeffrey Silva.
Yes.
Lorinda Visnick.
Yes, please.
And Rachel Abel. The time is, I said yes, 8:51 p.m. The committee of the whole is now adjourned, 8:51. I'm going to stop the recording and make this available to BevCam. Thank you, everyone, for joining tonight.
Good night.
Thank